Mason stretched sweetly. How he loved his business trips. Isabella was always waiting for him. Of course, these trips weren't cheap. He had been in such a financial hole lately, but Mason wasn't discouraged. After all, he worked, his wife worked, they would pay off the loan somehow. He'd taken out a loan as soon as he met Isabella. It's been a year now, but he still hasn't started paying it off. Isabella is not his wife who is content with what she has. She wants the best. As always, when he thought of his wife, his mood soured. Mason knew exactly what she would say when she found out about the loan. She would try to blame him for everything and tell him to take care of everything himself. In general, Mason's wife was smart and beautiful, but she was always teaching him something, always nagging him, telling him that at 45 it was time to become a serious man. And she was also unhappy when he and his friends stayed in the cabin for a few days. And worst of all, it was like she didn't care about him. The other wives, his friends' wives, would come over, scratch their husbands' faces, kick the girls out of the sauna. But his Natalie never did that. He even told her once when he was drunk, "It's like you don't care about me at all. You're like a cold fish. Why don't you come to the sauna and have a fight?" Natalie grinned then, "Maybe because I respect myself." Mason flinched. "What's your respect got to do with it? You don't realize you're embarrassing me in front of my friends. Like everybody has a wife and I'm the only one who doesn't." Then she said something to him that finally pissed him off. "More than you embarrass yourself, no one can embarrass you." Oh, how Mason wanted to hit her, but he held back. "Don't forget who pulled you out of the mud. One move and you're back in it." It was a low blow. They had agreed from the beginning that they would never remember the circumstances under which they had met. It was in the summer, in the park. Mason and his friends were walking home. At the end of the park, a girl was playing the violin. She often played there. Mason took her for a common beggar. That afternoon she was accosted by some drunken boys. They pushed her around, throwing change on the ground. There were 2 of the guys, and Mason had 6 people in his company. He intervened. He was very proud of himself afterward. And Natalie was very grateful to him. It turned out that the girl lived in a hut with her old grandmother. The grandmother was about to die, and Natalia had no one to help her. So she immediately fell into a place that was so hard to get out of. Somehow Mason realized that he liked her. And, thinking the girl would be submissive, he decided to marry her. Natalie worked like a horse. Mason, of course, also worked, but did not bother. They had no children. Mason didn't really think much about why, no, and that was just the way it was. So Natalie couldn't be like Isabella, of course. But Isabella. Mason looked at the sleeping Isabella. Yes, the kind of woman every man could only dream of. He was supposed to leave tonight. The bank started calling again. Natalie's paycheck is today, which means she has to take something to the bank tomorrow so they won't bother her for a while. Natalie isn't going anywhere. She will give him the money because she loves him, because he is the only one for her, because he got her out of the mud. Isabella entered the kitchen just as Mason was finishing setting the table for breakfast. He'd rented this apartment so Isabella wouldn't wander the neighborhood. She said she had a place to live, but she was suing her ex-husband for it. Mason didn't ask. The important thing was that Isabella was with him, and he'd figure out the rest. "Mason, we need to talk." Mason smiled and kissed her on the nose. "Honey, I know you're going to miss me. But you also realize that the time isn't right yet." Isabella shook her head, smirking. "There is no more time." Mason looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean? Have you found someone else?" "No," Isabella smiled fondly, and then tears came to her eyes. Mason, you know I'm 30, I'm a woman, and like any woman, I want a family. Mason had nothing against starting a family with Isabella, but he needed to solve his own problems and then start a new family. He knew he couldn't do it without Natalie. Isabella, you just have to wait a little longer. More than anything, I want to wake up next to you. Don't interrupt, Isabella brushed away a tear, you know time is running out, and theirs. Anyway, I didn't know how to tell you, but we're having a baby. Isabella looked into his eyes with a look so heartfelt that it gave Mason goosebumps. You see, a baby, yours and mine. Mason stared at her for a while, then jumped up and hugged her. He felt like an eagle now. He was going to be a father. Oh, God. Yes, a baby would bind Isabella to him even tighter than a wedding ring. Isabella, I'm so excited. You have no idea. Mason, you know we have to move quickly. The baby can't be born in a rented apartment. He also can't be fatherless. Mason's not talking. Yes, a dilemma. The apartment he lived in, they had already bought together with his wife. True, it was registered to him, as he is the owner, the head of the family. But in a divorce, things can get complicated. We need to get Natalie out of his life. Isabella, come on, let's go to my town. We can't break up now. I'll take care of my wife. While Isabella went somewhere else, Mason called his wife. Natalie, we need to have a serious talk. I'm listening. You have to understand me, I'm a man and I want a normal family with children. You haven't been able to give me that. Mason, I told you to get a checkup. Natalie, you need a checkup. I'm perfectly healthy, and recent events are proof of that. Recent events? Yes, I'm about to become a father. I hope you realize that you have to leave on your own, without arguing or complaining. There was a long silence. Then Natalie answered in a weak voice, yes. Wait for me. I need to sign some documents so that the child can have a decent life. Okay, I'll wait. Mason hung up. The important thing now was to think things over. Just then, a call came from the bank. Hello. The conversation was heated at first, but then Mason managed to take the initiative. He was connected to the owner of the bank, and they agreed to meet in person. Isabella wasn't happy. She would have to sit in the car and wait for something. Sunshine, be patient, he needed his wife to sign the papers and then not claim the house. That's not all he really wanted from her. Natalie, this means nothing to you. You're alone. There's nothing interesting in your life. And don't forget where you'd be if it weren't for me. What Mason meant didn't make sense to her. At first Natalie thought he wasn't being serious. But the more he talked, the more she realized that her husband was just selling her for debt. Not officially, of course, but there was no other way to call it. Natalie was so indifferent, so devastated inside, that she didn't say a word against it. We'll go tomorrow and talk about everything there. She was grateful to him at least for not kicking her out of the apartment at night. The bank owner was a little older than she was, maybe 5 years, no more. Now will you repay your debt to your husband? She nodded silently. I don't understand. But why? With your hands he has absolved himself of all responsibility. How will you communicate with him after that? Natalie looked up. He's with someone else now, they're having a baby soon. Do I have to quit or can I stay in my old job? The man shook his head. Natalie, wake up. Start screaming, start resenting. Your husband just practically sold you out and you're acting like nothing happened. She looked up at him with hurt eyes. I don't care. He stood up, grabbed her arm. Follow me. Natalie obediently followed him. He put her in the car and turned to her. "Have you eaten today?" She shrugged. "I don't remember." "I see. Then let's start with the food." Surprisingly, after they had eaten at the most expensive restaurant in town, Natalie felt hungry. By the end of dinner, her mood had even improved. "Well, you're looking much better. And you know what? I don't think you have a place to live either. I have a big house. Don't think anything bad of it, but there's a lot of empty rooms. You can stay with me for a while." Natalie shrugged. She knew exactly what she was agreeing to. But neither the first night nor the second night did Jack, that was the name of the bank owner, come to see her. They had met in the kitchen in the morning. He had even given her a ride to work, but he had made no attempt at anything more than that. Natalie involuntarily began to look at him and suddenly realized that there was a completely different type of man, completely different from her Mason. It had been exactly a year since Mason had returned with his young mistress. They'd signed right after his divorce from Natalie. Wife didn't show up for the trial, sent a lawyer. He didn't care as long as she worked off his debt and didn't try to split the apartment. And right after that, Mason got in trouble. First, Isabella forced him to quit his job and find another paying job. And where the pay was good, the work wasn't good. Second, Isabella immediately lost all her charm. She commanded him at will. To Mason, who had always commanded Natalie, this was so wild that he didn't even try to resist. He reasoned that Isabella was pregnant. And pregnant women don't act like humans. They wait until they have a baby and everything goes back to normal. But when the baby came, Isabella went crazy. He tried to stay away from home, because when he was home, he didn't work, and a man should always work. Sometimes, though, he was given a break, leaving him at home with the baby when Isabella got tired and went to the club to rest. One such evening, looking at the 5-month-old baby, he suddenly realized that the boy had a very striking appearance. At that age, his eyebrows, brown eyes, and very dark hair were already clearly visible. Of course, all children change, but he was a bit of a redhead and Isabella was blonde. Mason was well aware that if he asked Isabella anything, he would just get a frying pan to the forehead. A day later he was in the hospital, having had an unfortunate fall and broken his arm in 2 places. How Isabella yelled at him in the emergency room. How he blushed and hid his eyes from the nurses is another story. But when Isabella left, Mason sighed. Freedom. He was promised he wouldn't be allowed home until 2 weeks later. He happened to see the door to the ward and pushed it open for some reason. Confused, he explained what he wanted and the doctor calmly replied that of course anything could be done. Mason withdrew the money from Isabella's secret account and waited. A week later, after receiving the secret envelope, he stepped out into the hallway to return to his room and saw Natalie. He wasn't just surprised, he almost fainted. His ex-wife. She looked like she had just stepped off the cover of a magazine. In an expensive outfit that emphasized her slight pregnancy. Are you pregnant? You look good." Natalie nodded. "Thank you." Then she glanced at the sign behind Mason's back. "It's strange to see you here. I thought you were supposed to have a baby by now." Mason was frantically thinking of what to say to keep Natalia from leaving. "Well, the hell with it. Let's get some coffee. There's a cafe here at the hospital." "No thanks, my husband's waiting for me downstairs." She turned and walked down the stairs. Mason followed her. What the hell kind of husband? But at the end of the stairs, Natalie was met by the same banker to whom Mason had once given his wife. He felt like tearing the hair out of his head, but he pulled himself together. "It's all right. He's got a wife, he's got a kid." At the station, he printed out the envelope, ran his eyes over the lines. 0% probability of parentage. He stared at it for a long time, then cried. In 3 days he would return home to his beloved wife and his own son.